Welcome back to the Brahmin Word, and we are continuing to look at the life of Rahab, one of the most fascinating, I believe, fascinating women in Scripture, and the faith that she has, the obedience, the courage that she has, but then how she fits in to the grand story of redemption in Scripture is fascinating. So we'll get to that later, but today we really see her faith and her obedience and trust in these spies from Israel, that they will hold true to their word to protect her when Israel does conquer Jericho. So, with that, turn back to Joshua chapter 2, verses 15 through the end of the chapter, verse 24. Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was built into the city wall, so that she lived in the wall. Now, this makes a lot of sense, especially with her profession. You're not going to have that be the center of town. You're going to really have that be towards the outer part. Why? Well, it's not a very it's not a very commended profession, and you would probably want to not have a lot of attention on you as you go to this house, basically a brothel. That's what it most likely resembled. And so it makes a lot of sense that this is built into the city wall, where it's kind of out of the way. Verse 16. And she said to them, "Go into the hills, or the pursuers will encounter you, and hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Then afterward you may go your way." The men said to her, "We will be guiltless with respect to this oath of yours that you have made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, you shall tie the scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down. And you shall gather into your house your father and mother, your brothers, and all your father's household. Then, if anyone goes out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we shall be guiltless. But if a hand is laid on anyone who is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head. But if you tell this business of ours, then we shall be guiltless with respect to your oath that you have made us swear." So, obviously, she sees that Israel is going to conquer Jericho. And so she wants this word of promise from the spies of Israel, and thus Israel itself, that she and her family members and those she cares about will be safe. And makes a lot of sense, right? It's a very understood request. And what's interesting is this word guiltless. And what the spies are really trying to do is showing how serious they are taking this request from Rahab. They're like, look, we will do whatever we can. But if we give you a certain recommendation, and if you or somebody that you love doesn't follow it, that's not on us. But if we put recommendations in place and they aren't followed on our end, then we will take all the blame for it. Makes a lot of sense. But for me, it just goes to show how much respect and admiration these spies had for Rahab, and the courage and the bravery that she showed in this moment in chapter 2, to not give them away. And but not only that, but then to confess and really basically convert to being a follower of Jehovah, of Yahweh, is an amazing, amazing thing to see. And it's a I honestly think is a very beautiful moment. And so the big thing that they want her to do is to have this scarlet cord in the window, and probably the reason why they wanted that specifically is because it will stand out the color of the cord as well. But knowing ancient Israel and the culture that they are really putting together in the wilderness under Moses, but then continuing that with that in the promised land with Joshua, and then going um, into Judges and into the Kings, red or scarlet becomes very important because it resembles the blood of the sacrifices. And so it's just this idea of covering somebody with protection, and that is what they are wanting to do for Rahab. And what's interesting to this is that she does not hesitate. Verse 21. And she said, according to your word, so be it. Then she sent them away, and they departed. And now look at this. And she tied the scarlet cord in the window. She could. She could have waited until she looks out her window and sees like all these different soldiers coming for the city. Now, obviously, the fall of Jericho is very unique, and we will briefly talk about that later on, not in this video, but in a later video we'll briefly talk about it. But here I think it's again the faith that she has. Yes, she could have waited until she saw Israel coming towards Jericho, but she has so much faith that what has been promised to her will be carried out, because not just because of these men, but because of the God whom they serve, that she does not hesitate and she puts the scarlet cord in the window. How it's written, yes, it's hard to tell if it's like immediately, but the and she tied, I think, is to really show that she did not wait till the last second. I think that is clear that she did not wait until the last second. And I think that faith that she had is very, very admirable to see. But then we wrap up with the spies here. Verse 22. They departed and went into the hills and remained there 3 days until the pursuers returned, and the pursuers searched all along the way and found nothing. Then the two men returned. They came down from the hills and passed over and came to Joshua the son of Nun, and they told him all that had happened to them. And within that all that happened to them would have been Rahab, what she did, her faith and the courage and the bravery she showed, and then the request that she made. Verse 24. And they said to Joshua, truly the Lord has given all the land into our hands, and also all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of us. So with Rahab, you have this amazing woman that not only turns from her lifestyle, as we'll see later on, but she turns from the beliefs and the belief system of the culture that she was born into and raised in, and she follows after this God of the Hebrews, this God of Scripture, of Israel, and the God of Scripture. And I think that is an amazing, amazing moment. But here we see her as being this amazing woman of faith, believing in the promise that the spies have given to her about the scarlet cord, and that being the protection on her and her family. And then again, just the bravery and the courage to not um, give them up to the authorities of her own city is extremely admirable. So, with that being said, I hope that you can take away from this to be brave, be courageous. And it's interesting that we make that connection because be strong and be courageous is something that is mentioned a lot in the book of Joshua. Yes, it may be mentioned just to Joshua or to the Israelites, but Rahab exemplifies bravery and courage very, very well. And so, but the other thing too is when the Lord has made you a promise, whether it is Him saying it through His Word or He speaks through other believers on His account, and He has promised you something, He will see it through, and you can have the faith to make to know that he will see it through, even if it is very confusing or hard and difficult. And I know just even recently, I've definitely been thinking about this and holding on as best I can to the fact that God will see through his promises. And sometimes it's very, very scary to believe that with the situations that we are going through, but he always sees us through according to his will and his timing, which is always the best. Yes, it may not be in the time frame that we want or the result that we want, but it is always for the best because it is for his glory. And we, as his followers, are made for and are here to worship and follow him, and that is one of the great things about being a follower of Jesus. So with that being said, thank you for spending a little bit of time here with me today as we looked at the Brahmin word, and I will see you on Thursday as we get into a little bit of the fall of Jericho. I will see you then. Thanks.